What if the most powerful tool in a CEO's toolkit wasn't some spreadsheet, but compassion? It sounds a little out there, but today we're going to dive into a really fascinating new movement that's taking root in the world of corporate leadership, the CEO Circle Kindness Movement. It's a pretty bold idea and it's gaining some serious steam, so let's check it out. For the longest time, kindness was seen as this, soft skill. It was nice to have, sure, but not really essential for the bottom line. Well, that's all changing. We're actually seeing kindness move from the break room right into the boardroom, and it's becoming a core part of corporate strategy. And this isn't just about being nice, it's about leading in a fundamentally different way. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the new kind of CEO that this movement is creating. Then, we'll get into the philosophy behind it, which goes way beyond just the financials. After that, we'll explore some real-world stories of impact, understand why this is really the future of leadership, and finally, see how all this kindness actually translates into a real business advantage. Okay, first up, let's talk about the big picture here because a major paradigm shift is underway. We are literally seeing a whole new leadership model emerge, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. And it's one that completely challenges that old profit at all costs way of doing business. And look, this isn't happening in some small bubble. Big events like the Asia-Pacific Sustainability Conference are becoming these huge focal points for the movement. You've got top leaders, policymakers, and innovators all gathering to champion a brand new approach, and they're calling it compassionate leadership. So, what's the core philosophy here? Well, it's all about moving beyond the balance sheet to, and this is a great phrase, humanize corporate responsibility. We're talking about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, but with a much, much more human touch. A really key concept to understand is something called Sajatra leadership. The best way to think about it is aiming for a state of total well-being. It basically takes that sometimes robotic ESG framework and puts people and their communities right back at the very heart of it all. And this isn't just a bunch of talk. This quote from the conference makes it absolutely crystal clear. The goal here is action. It's about building a platform to inspire real, actual change and drive solutions that are laser-focused on communities, benefiting both people and the planet we all share. So you can really see how this movement is built on two key pillars, right? On one hand, you have Sajatra leadership, which is all about humanizing business. And on the other, the eco-legacy, which is about balancing profit with planetary kindness. It's a really powerful 1-2 punch for a more sustainable future. Okay, but talk is one thing and action is another. So let's actually look at some concrete examples of how these ideas are moving from the boardroom out into our communities. And that brings us to the really crucial question, doesn't it? What does humanizing ESG actually look like on the ground? How does a company really truly humanize its impact in the real world? Well, the answer comes from what the movement calls kindness movement stories. And these aren't just boring case studies. These are real-life initiatives from leaders who are already out there transforming their communities, and sometimes their entire industries, using this compassionate approach. Just take a look at some of these examples focused on sustainable futures. We're talking about really tangible projects, like designing kind smart cities. That means using technology not just for efficiency's sake, but to actively improve the well-being of the people who live there and to reduce the environmental impact. It's about rethinking our future from the ground up. And then, look at how communities are being empowered. This is about directly connecting a company's resources with what a community actually needs. A great example is using crowdfunding platforms for local ESG projects. See, instead of some top-down approach, it empowers communities to lead their own sustainable change, with business acting as a partner, not a patron. And the scope here is just incredibly broad. It even extends to culture and education. For instance, some initiatives are integrating ancient indigenous wisdom into modern conservation efforts. They recognize that centuries of knowledge can offer really profound solutions to today's ecological crises. It's all part of preparing the next generation for what they call a compassion economy. So this all sounds great, right? But why should a busy CEO or a team leader actually pay attention? Well, because this is no longer just about corporate social responsibility. It's about gaining a genuine, bottom-line strategic advantage. Here's the core idea, the big takeaway. The future of business isn't a choice between profit and purpose. It's a partnership. It turns out that long-term, sustainable growth is actually built on a foundation of planetary and social kindness. So, leaders who embrace this get real, actionable tools. They get practical ESG strategies. They learn from experts across every single sector. They see firsthand how being purpose driven directly shapes sustainable growth. It's not just about watching a trend from the sidelines, it's about getting in and becoming part of a transformative movement. And now, for the final and maybe the most important piece of this whole puzzle, how do you turn all this good feeling inspiration into real, measurable action? This is where the kindness movement actually provides a super clear roadmap. It's called the Genius Program, and it's a simple but really powerful blueprint. Step 1 is inspiration. That happens at the conference. Step 2 is implementation, a 3-month program to apply the concepts. And Step 3 is impact, where you get structured monitoring and assessment of the results. It's a rigorous process that turns a good idea into a proven strategy. So, all of this leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. In a world where customers, employees, and investors are all demanding more than just profits, we have to ask, is kindness becoming the new currency of business? Well, the evidence from this movement suggests the answer is a pretty clear and resounding yes.